a podcast featuring ordinary men of extraordinary faith. This is Manna.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Manna, podcast featuring ordinary men of extraordinary faith. I'm your host, Jeff Peterson. Now, none of the guys that you're going to meet on this podcast would consider themselves to be extraordinary, but it's their humble, holy way of living that is exactly what makes them extra to me, and I'm excited for you to meet them. Now, neat guest here for you today because he is a man that I got to know very well in a very short amount of time by design. Now, I go to great lengths, for those of you who have been listening to the show now for the last however many years, I go to great lengths to not really talk about specific work endeavors of mine, really at all. But I just have to provide a little bit of anonymous work context to adequately kind of introduce and explain my appreciation for the great man you're about to meet. Now, while our guests' career accomplishments are impressively, and I mean really impressively prolific as a leader, founder in marketing and digital technology, operations, and more for companies he's owned, he's run, he's worked for. I met him specifically under the auspice as a consultant. He was a consultant for a company that I worked for, that he was brought in to, presumably help fix. And so for those of you who maybe are consultants out there or who have been consulted by consultants, you're aware of some of the challenges, kind of on both sides. It's the outsider who's often feared, very seldom revered, as someone who's going to, maybe at best ask you for your watch to tell you what time it is, or at worst, maybe put your job or your life's work in jeopardy. So it's kind of a precarious relationship, that of consultant and consultee. And at the risk of getting too heretical too early here in the show, I think maybe Jesus was even hip to the whole consultant conundrum. Because if you read Matthew 10, verses 11 through 14, he says, "Whatever town or village you enter, search there for some worthy person and stay at their house until you leave. And as you enter the home, give it your greeting. If the home is deserving, let your peace rest on it. And if it's not, let your peace return to you. If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, leave that home or town and shake the dust off your feet." So I'm pretty sure I'm going to go to hell for that. But anyway, that was a connection I kind of made to the work of our guest and the relationship between the consultant and the consultee. So, but in spite of the preconceived notions or earned frustrations, again, on both sides of the fence, the way I met and got to know today's guest redefined my expectations of both of our roles, and at the time gave me a really different and very, very, very deep appreciation for guys like him that are wired to lead by serving and genuinely helping and genuinely connecting with others, even if he knows and even if he knew that the time that we'd be spending together would be fleeting. So anyway, he is as devoted and successful a family man as he is a businessman. And in fact, he's made some real sacrifices along the way to the latter to make sure that he's remained centered on the former. So everyone get your Patagonia puffer vests on, which is a complete inside joke, by the way, for today's Manna man, Mr. Chris Hulse. Chris, welcome to Manna.
Jeff, thanks for having me. That was a great intro right there, and as inside is regation my Patagonia vests, my sleeveless Patagonia vest, which is part of my everyday attire, specifically traveling out to Minneapolis. Came in handy until those couple months in the summer where it got warm. But yes, I'm glad to be here, and I love that quote you had about find people in town, and if they don't appreciate you, wipe the dust off and keep moving. And it's so it's good. I'm glad to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. And so I have to say, in your honor today, I actually did wear, it's very cold down in our basement. So we've been working out of my basement and it's freezing down here. And so I put a vest on.
All right.
I remembered that we'd be talking to him like, you know what? Chris would be so proud. I've got the Chris uniform on.
I appreciate it. And I'm doing the call today from upstate New York. I'm actually in Cooperstown, New York. It's where my family's originally from. I have a home here. It does get cold at night, and I wear the vest even here in the summertime at night. And I've got them for every company I've worked with. I've always gotten a vest, so it's I've got a nice wardrobe to choose from.
Yeah, so now all you Manna listeners, now the inside joke is now an outside joke. You are all in on the joke. So anyway, hey, long setup above or before about the whole consultant thing. But, Chris, I vividly remember the day that we kind of broke through a little bit. We were working late in a conference room. There was nobody else for miles because the place bugged out. And we're up there in this conference room, huge whiteboarding, some change management stuff, because I neglected to say in your intro, not only were you a consultant, but your whole gig was around transformation. So your whole thing was change. And so you're also bringing that little, Swiss Army knife of anxiety to people, of what's going to change, whatever. But anyway, I remember the two of us, we were up in this conference room, whiteboarding some stuff, and it ended with the two of us sitting. Again, I remember this vacuous conference room, and we were sitting there, and we just started talking about like real stuff, family and faith, and it was and it wasn't that long, but I just remember feeling like, God, this is so cool that you can make a connection with somebody. Really, it doesn't matter how long you've known them. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter, any of that stuff. It's just about kind of intent and just, kind of care. So that's kind of where I wanted to start. Has that always been kind of a trait of yours? Like growing up, were you always the guy that just made everybody feel like, they kind of mattered, and you just had these great connections along the way?
It's not knowingly, but it's one of those things where it's just who I am. Mm-hmm. It's, I have a genuine, thirst to connect and to understand people and kind of, empathize and understand kind of where they're coming from. And it's not self-serving. It's one of those things where, as you mentioned in my role, and to give, without naming names, but, coming in, via private equity, coming into some of the portfolio companies and kind of going in and kind of, doing some of that transformation work. I believe that, as I go into these businesses, is my whole job is basically to make them better. Mm-hmm. And it's a good feeling because I've had a lot of success basically helping turn businesses around, and in a lot of cases repurposing people so they can actually get, true value out of what they're doing. A lot of people that I've come across in my career have, maybe been kind of in the wrong role or mm-hmm. have a kind of a wrong job description and almost kind of setting them up to feel as if they're failing, but they're not. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things where, and so as I go in, kind of aligning them, to kind of the right skills with the right opportunities and identifying them, it's nice to see those connections. Yeah. And even as a kid, or I would, I'm very lucky to have lots of good friends. Again, is tonight, after our podcast, I'm having friends over for a bonfire, and, there's going to be 15 people there, and I've known all of them for over 40 years, if not more. And so lifelong friends, and all different walks of life. We don't see each other all the time, but the connections are still strong. So it's my willingness to connect, I think is a genuine trait. And it's, I look for a lot of other people. Again, sometimes in the work that I do, not a lot of people look to make those connections. They mm-hmm. kind of want to get in, take what they want, and leave. Yeah. And that's shallow. And it's one of those things where I think as we get in, we really get to make those connections and understand, not just on a professional level, but on a personal level. Mm-hmm. It makes, that's what life is all about anyway. Yeah. At the end of the day, I remember talking to my grandfather who passed away in his late 80s, and he would go to cocktail parties. And the reality is, majority of the people in the room, he didn't know what they did for a living. Because they've been retired so long, it didn't make a difference. Right. Yeah. No, and so they all got to kind of just, be who they really generally were and connect on those levels. No one was bragging about accomplishments or things they've done, and it was kind of an interesting eye opener for that. So,
I joked about kind of the stereotypical consultant, in the intro, and for those that maybe don't work in business or maybe haven't, maybe your perception of consultants is only through Hollywood. There is that sort of kind of a little more cutthroat, a little more kind of Gordon Gekko, greed is good kind of a thing. Were you unique? Because I agree. I think the way you approached it with genuinely looking to make things better and people getting them in the right roles made it remarkable on my end, kind of on the receiving end of it. But when you looked around, at your industry, when you look around at that industry, is that unique to the when compared to other people that you're hanging out with?
I would, is it unique? There are other people out there. I would say we're probably in the minority, but it's but there are, and I've been fortunate, to work with folks, and and again, we might have talked earlier about it even before, getting on the podcast is like those people, are very happy to be able to find each other. And it's, again, as I was going through it, and even in my role, kind of set it up is I worked at a portfolio company, and I did a job in the parent company, or the private equity company that owned that portfolio company, took me out and wanted to use me as a consultant across the rest of their portfolio. And, the term consultant and so forth, it doesn't really resonate with me. It's not a knock or so forth, but it's really, I consider myself more of an advisor, type stuff. What's the difference in, don't you do the exact same thing? And, I wasn't holding anything back. I wasn't holding kind of like my cards to myself to kind of earn my keep over a period of time. If I could go and help businesses and kind of get them where they need to do in a short period of time, I had a lot of other work that this private equity company would put me in front of. And so it wasn't self-serving, where I think sometimes consultants, insofar by nature, could be, giving a lot of advice, creating a lot of work, doing a lot of things. I always really appreciated people who have actually sat in the chair, actually done the job, and have had success at it, and then coming in and advising other people how to do it. And when I did that transformation work across, a couple dozen portfolios, of which the one you were working at were one of them, to me it was, how do we make it easier for customers to do business with us? How do we make it easier for employees to do their job, align the right people in the right places, and kind of, make a debris-free, field, so they can, just make a lot of people's lives easier and happier. If we can do that, the business will thrive. And it's not all about, cutting costs and cutting people just to get to an outcome. If you can kind of do that, sometimes there's bloat, but the reality is a lot of times companies get to a certain way over a period of time. It doesn't happen overnight, and you don't get out of there overnight as well. And so it's kind of just, as you make those turns and those transformations, it's kind of fun to kind of, look at the people who have been in some of these companies, and how do we elevate them, and how do we have them participate in a lot of this fun and success.
Well, and that empathy that you talk about, I mean, the fact that you had done it, you'd lived it, you walked the mile in the shoes or in the sandals. Let's talk about growing up. You talk about these friends, this party that you're having tonight that I was not invited to.
Well,
of all these,
you're like 600 miles away, but if you're closer, I'd have you.
I had friends. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, so and it doesn't surprise me. I mean, that you're like this ship and all these barnacles that just attach to you and don't ever let go. But what was it like growing up in the Hulse household, those many years ago?
I had a great life, and a great life growing up. If you ask my wife, she thinks I was sometimes raised by wolves. But it's my parents divorced early in life. It wasn't a really good marriage, like early, like when I was 12, 13 years old, which is always traumatic. And but it's one of those things where and even with my wife, I had a resilience about how to kind of get through it. And it's, and I didn't blame my parents, and it's now looking back, as an adult, understanding kind of them as adults and having kids myself, realizing they probably weren't a correct fit for each other. They probably got into something maybe they shouldn't have sooner than they should have, on a variety of fronts. But I think, learning from that, and I don't, take anything away from either one of them, but it made me a better father. It made me a better husband. Kind of recognizing that, far from perfect, obviously, but it's one of those things where it was fun when it was fun, and there's a bunch of unfun spots in there, but it's one of those things where it impacted my older brother and my younger sister differently than it did me. I kind of, for a variety of reasons, was just more of a kind of head down, and just, I tried not to look too far out in front of me or look for blame or cause, and I just took it one day at a time, and that's how I dealt with it. And it's I didn't carry any issues or resentment with it, and it's my wife thinks sometimes maybe I should go talk to someone, maybe I need to open up more, but I feel as if I was able to do it. I had a happy childhood, even in an imperfect environment. I had good friends, and still today, and good relationships with my parents. My mother passed away, but about 10 years ago. But I have had a great, phenomenal, close relationship up to her death, and I've got a good relationship with my father today.
Yeah. As adults, we have the benefit of just years and a little bit more maybe deliberation of being able to, God willing, surround ourselves with people that give us that energy, put ourselves in situations, that are going to nurture the kind of life that we want for ourselves and our kids. And a lot of times faith plays into that. And I know you're a man of great faith. What role did faith play way back when? So you're taking it one day at a time, having a great childhood, but kind of, it's a broken home. It's not ideal. Was there a strong faith kind of, element back then?
I believe, there was. It's more on my mom's side.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was Italian, Roman Catholic, and so forth, and it's not perfect, obviously. But I remember very early on, it's even with my name Chris or Christopher, Christ bearer. I always thought that was kind of cool. I was the giant that carried baby Jesus across the stream. For whatever reason, I was like 5 years old. I was like, that's the coolest thing. Incredible,
Yeah.
And then it's I got to pick my confirmation name. I went with Peter the Rock because he was the leader,
Yeah.
And I Paul, so it's very as many disciples as you can get in there. And it was it's kind of stock in the deck. It's like but it's like I always feel as if it was always part of me. I never questioned it.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't and I always knew it gave me comfort. It's one of those things where even at a young age, not even really knowing or understanding, but I know of, a little prayer to God. And, during Christmas, I, love listening to all the, the Christmas, music, which was more religious in nature. And I, it attracted me, to it maybe. And so I always had a good relationship with it.
Yeah. How about with guys, whether they were, friends that maybe were a couple grades older, or maybe, uncles or other teachers, coaches. Were there any men other than obviously your dad, and maybe it was your dad, but like, were there, as from a role model perspective, were there any men, growing up that kind of stick out as more, kind of, sort of formational than others?
There were a lot of them, and all in little pieces and little ways. And it's, and one of the ones that first come to my mind was a coach I had in high school, Coach Rose, who was one of our football coaches. And up until ninth grade, I was actually a very small guy. I was a gymnast. When I hit from my freshman year in high school to my senior in high school, I gained about 100 pounds. I was 230, 6'3". And so I was this really big guy, very athletic. I did, I could swim, I could dive. I was a gymnast, but I never played, big contact sports. I wasn't big enough, but here I am a senior year in high school, and I'm going to play football.
Yeah.
And we had this great coach, Coach Rose, who just attracted me. I was, he was, he would say a prayer, stuff like this. He would, this isn't a public school, which, but, just kind of watching, kind of taking his lead. And he said, no one's going to give me anything. No one's going to just, you have to go out and earn it. And it's one of those things where, our senior in high school, we actually won our state championship game. So I've never played football in my life. I go out there. By the
you were the missing piece.
No. It's a team. It's a team. It can't be just one person. But what sticks me out with him is basically, he did not give out compliments easy. Not everyone got but when he did, in the most littlest thing, it meant something. I was in his health class, and I remember I was talking with someone, and I was like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. I went to bed last night at 8:00, and I woke up this morning, I'm still tired. And he's like, that's because, and he spoke up. That's because she had a great practice yesterday. And I was like, whoa. I was like, wow, that's pretty, and it's and he would, at the end of every game, actually kind of write some of the players' notes, like a little handwritten note, one sentence long. And like, it meant a lot. It meant the world to me, and so, got to keep the grades up, but it's one of those things where I didn't want to let him down. So it definitely made me go above and beyond. So he was a big influence.
That's cool. Yeah. And sometimes it's the shorter, I mean, I'm I'm prone to going on and on and on. But I tell you, some of the best moments I've had with people who have either course corrected me or given me that little boost, they say it in so few words. It's just a
Yeah.
little bit, and that's all you need, just to
Yeah.
set you
No,
on.
it was just, and there's just, I've had neighbors, and I've had, friends of my father's who had kids, close to my age, who would talk to us, stuff like this, and just give, the little words of advice and so forth. And it meant, I'm a collector of that. It was going on, and kind of, and when my parents, was mentioned, were divorced, and as we go out, and I was kind of looking kind of how to become my own man. It's kind of like, I wanted to replicate good. I didn't want to replicate bad. And it's one of those things where, as you kind of key in on, and I always tried to do my best, and so forth. And so as I got, became a lifeguard in high school or right after college, or professors in college and so forth, kind of working hard. And if I wasn't doing it, I wasn't afraid, to go up and say, hey, what do I need to do better? How do I raise this grade? Hey, I have a problem. Do you mind if I ask you a quick question? That just became very easy to me. Yeah. And so I was very fortunate, and specifically with this area up in Cooperstown, New York, where I have a history of family and friends that are still come back to this area. A lot of those early mentors of mine are still around, and so they get to see me grow up. And so it's not a one and done.
Yeah, right.
I keep to go back to the well.
Yeah. Well, it's that connectivity. That's what, we've been talking about, just this staying connected, staying throughout. It's just it's a gift. So, all right. Well, hey, we are, time goes by so fast. We're already at the fun segment of the big show here. Yep. Here we go. And get ready, everybody. So these are the same 3 questions we ask every guest. And I just have every confidence in the world that Chris is just going to knock them out of the park. So fun segment question number 1. If Jesus knocked on your door tomorrow morning, right up there in Cooperstown. Yep. Knocks on your door, Cooperstown, just wants to hang out for the day. What are you going to do with Jesus?
I'll tell you, I have a lot of friends that come up and visit me up here. I would say, Jesus is a friend. This is what I would do with him. I said, I don't want to make it something I don't normally do. We'd have coffee. Yeah. We'd sit on my front porch. We'd talk. I would like to take him for a ride in my truck. I have a F-150. I'd like to take him for a ride down some back roads. Grab an early lunch, maybe spend an afternoon on the boat. If this happened, we're up, it's summertime now where we are, and it's kind of just spend one-on-one time. I don't want to. It's not just kind of hopefully some great banter back and forth. I probably got to won't be shy asking. He'll probably say enough with the questions. It'd probably be a day just like that. Just starting out with sitting in a rocking chair on the front porch, looking down this valley, having a cup of coffee, and just taking it from there. I mean, it would just be one of those type of days, and maybe it would end up like something I'm doing tonight, with back at the house around a campfire, a bonfire, and kind of with friends, and just that's how we do it.
I love it. All the friends would be like, "Who's the new guy? What's he doing here?"
Ask him anything. He's got all the answers. Yeah.
All right. Fun segment question number 2. If you could go to church with any other guy, living or dead, famous or not, just no other rules other than you're going to church and you're going to go with a guy, who are you bringing to church?
I am such a, it'd be George Washington, number 1. Yeah. George Washington. And it's, I was thinking it's, could be my mother who passed away, my grandfather, but I wanted to kind of just take a flyer on this one and say, someone like George Washington. I'm a history buff, and I'd be just, love just to meet him and kind of go to church with him, and then kind of spend a little time with him. At the church I go to here, when church is over, we spend about 30, 45 minutes afterwards with coffee and, Danishes and whatever, before everyone runs out. So, it'd be kind of fun just to do it with George Washington.
Very
hang
cool.
out. Yeah.
Very cool. No, totally agree. All right. Fun segment question number 3, bring it down the home stretch here. If you could give one, and you have done this, so you just have to pick the one, but if you could give one piece of advice to a younger man, a little further upstream, specifically about living a confident life of faith, living a life that you live where, it's not necessarily something that you're going to be, standing on a street corner, barking at people about the end of days, but just,
Right.
the presence that you have, the confidence that you have in your faith. What would that one piece of advice be?
It's interesting, and it's as I think about that, the one piece. I mean, as I look at my own son who's 18, just turned 18. I look back at him and they grow, and and I've got 3 children who are all so different. And if I could go back and look at myself, 20 years ago, go to those. It's never convenient to go to someone's, a communion on a Saturday, or, Aunt Bethany's, 65th birthday party.
Yeah, right.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it. 'Cause that's what it's all about. And we're all working, and we all want our free and our time to ourselves, but just do it. Just do it. And, show up, and it's, and that's, 95% of it. And when you're there, appreciate the time with your family, because they won't be here forever.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, the other piece of advice is bring a friend. I've got people who I brought back to Christmas or Thanksgiving, who are people out there who might not have anyone, or, might be divorced and not have a kid this weekend or that weekend or this holiday or that holiday. Bring them.
Yeah.
It's family isn't just blood. It's close friends as well.
Yep. Oh, so well said. So well said. Chris Hulse, thank you so much for being here. And it was just great for me to reconnect with you. And I'm just so happy now that all of our listeners have had a chance to meet you. If they didn't know you already, now you do. And now you've got an even broader network of connections and friends out there in the world that is very, very blessed to have you in it. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for listening to Manna. If you have any questions or recommendations for future guests, send them to mannapodcast@gmail.com.